非常谢谢以上8位讲者为我们带来非常精彩的分享。那么接下来呢，我们就进入到座谈的时间。我们邀请今天的讲者一起在线上还有线下和我们一起来参与讨论。Thank you once again to our 8 speakers for your wonderful presentations today. We will now proceed with panel discussion. We have outlined some questions regarding AV, EV industry and market for today's discussion, and we look forward to hearing insights from our speakers today. Let's begin by welcoming the speakers who are joining our panel discussion today. Okay, here with me on the scene, we have Mr. Thomas Fan, Special Assistant to Chairman of Foxconn Interconnect Technology, and Mr. Thomas Zheng, General Manager of ThinkTron. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, and joining us online, we have Mr. Shinpei Kato from Japan. He is the founder and CTO of Tier 4 and co-founder of AutoWare Foundation.
Hi, guys. I'm Shinpei. I'm looking forward to the productive discussion today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kato. And next, we have Mr. Andy Zheng, Deputy Division Director of Information and Communications Research Laboratories at ITRI. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andy Zheng from ITRI, Taiwan.
Thank you very much for joining us today. Next, we have Mr. Yan Shanghe, Director of Optimal Incorporated. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. I'm Optimal, the R&D Director from US. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us from the US. And next, we have Mr. Paul Lee, Sales Director of eTrigo, who is here for Mr. Lin Junying. Hello, welcome.
Hello, I'm Paul from eTrigo, Taiwan. Thank you.
Thank you once again for joining us today. Okay, let's proceed with the questions. First of all, we would like to look into AV, EV market and industry from a broader picture. So the question is, what type of AV and EV will have the largest application in Europe, US, China, Taiwan, and Southeast Asia? Why? And also, in your perspective, what are the major concerns for potential users or buyers? Does any of our speakers would like to answer first? How about Thomas?
Let me get things started. Actually, in each region, they all have their unique customer wants and also problem to overcome. We take Asia or Great China region as an example. Obviously, people know that China is one of the leading edge of the EV push. On the other hand, a lot of AV activity also being implemented. There are many pilot programs like Apollo's robot taxis and other things being launched in different cities. However, if we want to talk about a viable business, we'll talk about a cost, not only in the vehicle cost, but also the operating cost. In terms of the EV, I think it's over the last 20 years, the biggest breakthrough is the battery cost structure. And we believe that in the next 5 to 10 years' time, the cost of battery vehicles can be equal or even better than the internal combustion engine vehicles, right? However, the concern from the customer side is still the range. If we take a look like the golden weekend of China a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of people queuing for 4 hours to get into the charging station. So how the infrastructure improvement can support a fast-growing number of the EV going to be a big obstacles, not just in China, probably most of the countries.
Thank you very much for your perspective shared. Mr. Zheng, would you like to share anything? Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yes, actually, I'm not deeply involved to this industry. We just provide the data, map data, in terms of the high definition map, HD map. So it's the essential map for AV development. So from a safety point of view, always concerned about the safety. Mm-hmm. So how to produce the more high accuracy HD map and have any infrastructure along the road can connect to the car to communicate with the car to push the information to the car if have any accident in front of the your right the way. So the most important is how to let the information more quickly through maybe the 5G or more high tech to let the car can communicate and communicate with the control center. I think that most of the people concerned about how to realize that and let the transportation and the car more safety. So I heard about that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your take on this. All right. Once again, we would like to remind our speaker to turn off your microphone if you're not speaking. Okay, thank you very much. All right, so thank you very much for your perspective shared. And moving on, talking about commercial use, we would like to hear your observations on what will be the first commercially viable AV or EV application? And according to your observation, what are the concerns and limiting factors for its wide usage? Again, do we have any speakers that would like to share first?
Hi. I think I can give my 2 cents. Okay. I think the widespreading of AV application depends on 2 major facts. The first is the maturity of technology that overcome the environmental complexity and the uncertainty. And the second one is the maturity of regulation that define the liability issue. So application with limited uncertainty, complexity, and liability will be relatively faster for commercial uses. For example, the operation of autonomous driving buses in confined area can substantially reduce the complexity and uncertainty concern. And the other use will be the autonomous assist system, like AEB, lane keeping assist. Those systems provide assistance rather than to take over the liability from human driver. So I think that will be faster for commercial uses. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your answer from Mr. Andy Zheng from ITRI. Anyone else? How about Mr. Yan from Optimal?
Yes, and I just got the American AV comprehension plan, the 4.0. They have mentioned maybe the AV application is popular will be the shuttle bus, or we say the transition about that. And Taiwan also has the ARP project. So in my opinion, I think public transportation will be the first commercial application in AV. But right now in America, they have a lot of the constraint and thinking factory, just like the government regulation and policy. But right now I see the US DOT, the AV 4.0 comprehension plan, they mentioned about that they do a lot of the regulation modified and modernized. Just that the public transit can be tested in a lot of the state. Just what I know, the California, Texas, Tennessee, Michigan, they have already had some project and to push for this direction. So I think the policies, human, the factory, but I think the important restrict factor will be the smart traffic facility popular. Because the AV, you need a lot of information from the internet, from we say the smart facility, just like use the camera and a lot of radar, something like that. But for the commercial company, they will care about the profit. Because right now in the AV, they have a lot of the cost, include the LiDAR and the other IoT facility or equipment that will be expensive now. So my opinions and in here, in Taiwan have a lot of experience or a chance we can catch up this, and maybe we can try to use the public transition is better. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your observation from the U.S. market and also your suggestion for Taiwan. How about here our speakers on the scene? Mr. Thomas Zheng, would you like to share?
From my observation, I heard in Japan, because the labor shortage, the car driver, the bus driver or truck driver, the average age around 60. So it's very terrible. So from the logistics industry point of view, they want to use the AV to solve this kind of problem, because I think everyone can image after COVID-19, we have a lot of logistics industry boom up and need a lot of driver. But no young men want to drive the bus and want to drive the trunk, so need to AV. But where is the best place to apply the AV? I think that in Japan and some test site in the United States in the highway, because highway can have toll, can earn the money, and easy to count how many miles you drive, and easy to calculate how many money can get from this kind of industry. So from my point of view, a lot of people ask the AV right now just level 3, popular like the Tesla, but how to go to a level 4 or level 5? It needs to depend on the mature technology. So in the highway, it's very more easier. I mean, compared to the public road, it's more easier to establish, deploy a lot of sensor or low side unit to communicate with car, just I mentioned, and also have HD map, and also the AV, the cost will going down. So logistics, the industry, I think that maybe the first one can realize the AV can drive on the highway. And also, I also agree, echo to this one panel experts, the public transportation also can earn some money. So I think it's the first stage. If you want to AV to go to the public road, it maybe it take a more longer time because the traffic condition more complex. So it's my opinion on this.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any speakers would like to add anything on this subject? Yes, Mr. Kato. Please go
thank
ahead.
you very much. Yeah, for mentioning Japan. So yeah, I have twofold observations. From social point of view, I agree that the bus drivers, logistics drivers, they are aging. So for such commercial usage that can help driverless, services such as bus or trucks, would be the way to go, because there is a social needs for the technology. The second point of view is the regulation technology point of view. As far as operational design domain can be clarified, that represents environmental condition where autonomous vehicles expected to work. So bus or truck also a good way to go, as you can somewhat easily define how they're supposed to work. While robotaxi might be a little bit long way to go, because if you want to define how they work, then it's going to be more complicated. So I completely agree that both from social and regulation point of view, bus and trucks would be probably first pilot applications in autonomous vehicles.
Thank you very much for sharing with us your observation. Thank you, Mr. Kato. All right, let's move on with the third question. What are the technology solutions and business incentives and also social needs that might accelerate the wide adoption of EV and AV? Any of our speakers would like to go first?
Okay, but anyway, I try to speak louder. From my point of view, because eTrigo, we are the EV charging solution providers. And according to these questions, I think from the technical point of view, it will be the cost. I mean, from the consumer's of view, the cost right now, the EV cost is quite high due to the battery technologies. So if the manufacturers, they can lower the battery cost and higher the battery technologies. I mean, also, to have mileage increase in even lower cost of vehicles, it will be accelerate consumer to have an EV personally. And I think also from the society point of view, if government, I think quite a lot, the speakers, they share some of very good points, which is safety. Okay, safety will be very important things to consumers, to every users of AVs. So if government, they can provide like local free shuttle service by using AVs to increase consumers' confidence in that kind of vehicles, I think it will be help the government to create the regulations for the AVs too.
Okay, thank you very much to Mr. Lee from eTrigo. Anyone else would like to share their observation or perspective? Yes, Mr. Zheng from eTri.
Okay, I think I can also share some example from Taiwan. In Taiwan, we are already have from many companies. We have already 11 autonomous driving project test on the public road. One of it is the autonomous driving boat, and the other are autonomous driving vehicle. And each one has to go over a long review process to get the permission to test on the road. For example, the E3 project, we take almost a half year to get the legal license plate to test on the road. And the majority of these projects are providing the autonomous driving shuttle services in confined area. So because the autonomous driving service has limited the complexity and uncertainty, and also it is running in the confined area, so it will be faster to the market. And the government is also planning to roll out the so-called ART system. ART stands for Autonomous Driving Rapid Transit. The purpose is to reduce the infrastructural cost and the deployment time to the public system. The counterpart is the MRT system, because in Taiwan the deployment of MRT system take almost a decade to deploy in a city. So it will be much benefit to deploy such a system based on the autonomous driving system. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Mr. Zheng from eTri. How about Mr. Thomas Zheng from Thinktron?
Yep. If want to widely adopt the AV, I think the AI technology is also very important. I think a lot of people emphasize AI, but how to get the image label data? In Taiwan, we have our localized traffic sign or the traffic condition. I think it's compared to the different region. I mean, the market is different. So we need to do that by ourselves. I mean, we need to have our national labeling database. So the first of all, I think that we need to have our national database to training the AI model. I mean, want to go more forward and developing the software, maybe the edge computing. We use the camera to identify which kind of the object around the road. First of all, we need to have the database to train the AI. So from my point of view, this is the first step we need to do that. And also, we very realize the hardware. I mean, the high resource computer, maybe on the cloud, rely on the cloud through the 5G, but it also have a latency. If we drive the speed very high, I think the latency would is what it also have delay, will make some accident. So we need to have edge computing. Mm-hmm. So from the hardware point of view, we need to have very robust and install the computer in the car, and also can let the AI can in the edge can identify the object and create a more robust ADAS system. We can do our own product in Taiwan. So from the software part, we need to do this kind of step. First step is the labeling database and create an AI model, and then maybe have a chip and let the chip install in the car, in a camera. Mm. Okay, my idea.
Thank you. So there are many things that we need to make efforts on first. Yeah. Okay. Mr. Thomas Fine, would you like to share your take on this?
Well, I think in order to make things successful, you need two kind of force. One is to pull, the other one is to push. Mm-hmm. Right? No matter for EV or AV, where is the force? We need to identify that. For EV, obviously, the society right now has high awareness about the climate situation, green requirements. So I think in especially most of the advanced market and countries, the customer are aware of the need and willing to pay for that. But on the other hand, how the government can develop appropriate policies to create environment for all those automakers or new startups can put their product and technology into the use, very, very important. On the other hand, for those slow to change, you need something to push. That's where the new standard and regulation come in. And even something like a penalty, for example, the carbon tax, those kind of things, to push those slow to change faster. Right? So all kinds of things all combined, then you are going to have a quick successful story like what we are seeing right now in Europe. Europe is catching very quickly, especially in EV. You look at over the last 18 months, the way they grow the EV is unbelievable. Of course, China, the EV growth is also very significant. Mm-hmm. But you look at how the European market, European customer accept the EV, that's actually the model other countries probably need to think about, especially like a market like Taiwan. Should we adopt similar things from Europe?
Thank you very much for that perspective shared. Okay, so we do have some role models. All right, let's move on with the next question. The new supply chain and value chain for EV/AV is emerging, and major OEM and Tier 1 suppliers are fighting to dominate the platforms. For example, Tesla, Volkswagen, GM, Altria, Motorola, etc. How should Tier 1 and 2 suppliers select and join a platform? Can you share with us your perspective or your suggestions on this?
Well, since we are a supplier, so probably I lead the discussion here. I think the first thing is to look inside ourselves what we need to change before we choose who we want to work with. What change a supplier must make, because the situation already changed, technology requirement already changed, the customer want also changed. So is our current technology or product still suitable for the future market? If we answer to this one is no, then need to figure out very, very quickly how to change and how to reposition ourselves in the future competitive world. I think that's most of the global suppliers right now are doing, because some of them are doing actually moving very, very fast. For example, Bosch. I dealt with Bosch for some time, and although sometimes people may have a kind of a impression, some of the old guards, like a Bosch or like some automaker, they move very slowly. The fact is totally wrong. They move very fast. And they already recognize the need in like 2017, so they start to restructuring. We'll just give one example. And they are forming a huge software center already, and also working with different kind of staff for many years, including like 3D high definition mapping, localizations, how to integrate all those technology into their AV technologies, right? So if a old guard already moving such fast speed, then other suppliers really need to look into ourselves, say, can we move even faster? Because they are a very strong competitors. Then if we want to survive or compete in the futures, then we need to change even faster. But it's not blindly. We need to look closely, work with our customers, understand the need, reposition ourselves.
Well, that's very well said. Thank you very much for sharing with us. Anyone else would like to share? How about some international perspective from Japan? Mr. Kato?
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, when you say autonomous vehicle, actually it means a lot. So on one hand, still you have traditional industry where tier 1, 2 companies well positioned. So I believe that still they should stick with the current industrial structure, because it has a lot of values for example, more human-centric autonomy, like level 2 plus. However, when you say autonomous vehicle as more emerging level 3 or 4 autonomy, then it's getting more and more, how to say, flat. So I believe that it's quite important to look into an open ecosystem where you can choose anybody for your partners, and look into a new technology. So I believe that creating a new open ecosystem is actually key to say restructure reposition on the current tier 1 or tier 2 companies. That is my belief, and drive myself to create open source software community. If you look at the history, say Microsoft 20 years ago had a very big operating system community, but if you look at today, they now shifted into Linux based platform, which is open source. So if you look for 20 years ahead, probably it's good time today to start investing open ecosystem or open source technology to dive into the future. So that is my view.
Thank you very much to Mr. Kato. Any of our speakers would like to echo or have any thoughts on the opinions shared by Mr. Fan and Mr. Kato? Anyone? All right, if not, let's move on to the next question. It goes, what might be the technologies and components that Taiwan industry can play a pivotal role in the EV/AV supply chain? That's similar to TSMC in chip making. How about we start with Mr. Fan again?
Well, obviously, semiconductor always number one and very, very important. But obviously, we are looking at the different kind of a semiconductor technology. For example, the third generation, the SiC, gallium nitride, which can cope with the high voltage and also temperature requirements. And that's to be used in the EVs. But they are much more than just like that. As Ms. Chen talked about computing power inside a vehicle, we call it high-performance computing. Certainly, inside vehicle, even we put in all the chips, there's a limitation how much they can do. So, how to design a location between the vehicle and the cloud, and that's also very important. So, to some extent, all those are playing into Taiwan's strengths. Right? We're talking about server center, we're talking about connectivities, we're talking about computing powers, right? So those are the things that Taiwan industry, especially like electronic industries, are pretty good. So how to utilize the advantage? Although yes, stepping from ICT industry into the mobility industry is a huge step. The quality requirements, the safety requirement, liability, even the warranty. For example, recently the LG and the GM, the battery issues, sometimes that kind of cost may scare people away. But on the other hand, that's also showing if we can succeed, it's a huge market there because not many people can really successfully get into this circle. And Taiwan, to some extent, we have some advantage already. How to utilize the advantage? Because we are looking at it not just in Taiwan. This is a global game. And where is the strength of Taiwan now? Then how to utilize those strengths?
Thank you very much. Utilizing our advantage. All right, we're also very interested to hear opinion from Mr. Kato. From Japan, from an international perspective, can you give us some suggestion?
Yeah, sure. From my point of view, yes, Taiwan is definitely a leading country in semiconductor and manufacturing. So, as I mentioned earlier, I believe that Taiwan is very good at establishing an ecosystem. For example, TSMC, it has a very good foundry ecosystem. So recently, they also opened a factory in Japan, where it also creates, employment even in Japan. That's very important to work together internationally as part of the ecosystem. So I hope that from that point of view, both Taiwan and Japan can work together to establish this ecosystem, and we can utilize the advantages from both countries. And again, Taiwan is a leading country, in semiconductor and manufacturing, so we can establish an ecosystem on top of semiconductor industry and manufacturing industry. That's going to be a platform for the future autonomous vehicle, business and technology revolution. That is my view.
Yeah, and we look forward to that future cooperation between Japan and Taiwan. Okay, any other speakers would like to share your take on this subject? Okay, if not, oh yes, please go ahead.
Traditional industry always say want to do the digital transformation. So we need to think about how to collect the data. So right now, a lot of mapping company like here, TomTom is very famous, very big one. Mapping company, they cooperate or invested by the car industry. I think all around the world, a lot of market already happened, also include Taiwan. So Taiwan market very small, but I agree the Kanto-san said a very, very good suggestion. Taiwan no really car industry, very a big brand car, but we have a semiconductor industry and can have the supply chain. Everything can buy or everything in Taiwan, and also we can develop the software. If the car industry can cooperate with Taiwan, it will be the very strong power can have a new business and a new market. So if we image what kind the car in the future, it's maybe it's a combined the mapping industry and also traditional car industry, also some media content also inside. So a very many kind of business will happen.
Yeah, so combining a lot of strengths that we have here in Taiwan. Okay, so we do have a follow-up question on that. Now we would like to talk about what Taiwan government and MTARC can do to analyze the above and initiate major programs to create a strong EV/AV industry. How about we start with Kato-san from Japan?
Thanks. So yeah, this question probably relates to the previous questions. So I believe that the government first needs to clearly define the criteria for the technology. So like AI, we need to know to what extent we have to verify and validate the AI, capability. So if the government doesn't define that criteria, the technology company like us need to test forever. So the government must define the criteria to what extent the companies are supposed to test, verify, and validate the technology. And adding to that thing, so the government should also support industry to collect data and also define the criteria how they can share the data with the companies inside the country, also outside of the country. Like map data is very sensitive. Today, you can only share the map data probably inside their own country, but the government has to work with industry to define how they can treat data. Also, talk to the governments from other countries how to share the data among the countries. That is my point.
Thank you very much. Does any of our speakers have any take on that, on this subject matter?
Yeah, I think if Taiwan really want to be the leader in these areas, the government need to boldly announce their aggressive target. For example, when is our carbon neutral years? How we are going to reduce the emission by 2030, for example, right? Those things will drive about policy change and then create ecosystem. Just not, even Japan already announced that one. So where is Taiwan's declaration? So to me, it's not just a gesture, it's a determination and commitment. How we are going to lead all the change, right? Because honestly, in my previous capacity, I worked with government for a long time, and we lobbied this one, how to create a low carbon societies. So I think this journey now worldwide is accelerating. Taiwan cannot be left behind. We need to be on the leading edge. And so far, we are a little bit slow, but still we have time, we can catch up. So how quickly we can catch up will determine the whole outcomes here.
Yeah, so we need to make decision and also announce our determination, yes, which is very important. Thank you very much for your sharing on this. Any one of our speakers have any suggestions for our governments or MTARC? Okay, if not, we do have received some questions from our audience regarding the presentation. These two questions are for eTrigo concerning their presentation. Okay, so let me read out the first question. This question goes, e-motorbikes are currently booming in Taiwan, and we can see them everywhere, whether they're swapping or charging. It was mentioned in the presentation that e-motorbike already have IEC standards. Can you share with us on Taiwan's future development in this area? So, Mr. Lee from eTrigo, would you like to answer this question for us?
Okay, I give some point of my view. For the e-motorbikes, in this development project strongly in the past few years, and currently we are following the IEC standard for electric motorbikes charging systems, and I think we are the only one who can provide the the IEC charging standards in Taiwan, also in the worldwide too. And I think we will continually to improve the charging speed. I mean, kind of AC to DC power modules need to have more higher efficiency for power transformed. Also, I think for our chargers, we are in IEC approval at the moment, and I think in December, end of this year, we will get the certificate from the IEC. So it will help us to export these standards to Europe or South Asia in end of, next year. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Another question for your company. According to your presentation, the Thai Power Company has begun to cooperate with various EVSE manufacturers on the future smart city and microgrid with V2G POC case. Is there any real vehicle testing and two-way grid vehicle and technology in Taiwan? Mr. Lee?
Okay. Yes. At present, many charging companies have participated in Thai Power's related plans. And I think in about 4 months ago, we have a V2G POC plan with Thai Power in Kinmen, the electric power factories there, which is have good testing areas for V2G systems. And we hope through this plan we can do better with Thai Power for the regulation in the future.
Okay, thank you very much to Mr. Lee's answer. And that's all the questions that we have for our discussion time. I would like to thank once again to all the speakers who have joined this forum, given the presentation, and also joining this panel discussion forum, and also answering these questions for us. Thank you once again to our speaker. Thank you for joining this session today. Have a wonderful day, and thank you once again to our participants. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
各位来宾，我们今天的论坛呢就到这边告一个段落。非常感谢您今天的参与，也再一次谢谢所有的讲者今天为我们发表非常精彩的分享，以及来到这边回答我们的问题。那么最后呢，在这边提醒各位，帮我们扫荧幕上面的 QR code 来帮助我们填写问卷。您的宝贵意见我们相当的重视，也为我们未来的论坛作为参考。最后呢，也提醒您，明天早上10点钟开始就可以收看我们论坛影片的回放，所以呢，如果大家有需要的话，明天早上10点钟就可以看影片的回放。再一次谢谢大家今天的参与，谢谢各位，拜拜 ，Thank you。